the haunted lake retreat. The summer sun blazed down on the winding road as a group of friends made their way to a secluded lake cabin. Sophia, Noah, Lily, and Matt had been planning this getaway for months, eager to escape the hustle and bustle of city life. The cabin, nestled deep in the woods and overlooking a pristine lake, promised tranquility and adventure. Little did they know, their dream vacation was about to turn into a nightmare. The group arrived at the cabin in the late afternoon. The air was thick with the scent of pine and the sound of birds chirping. The lake glistened invitingly, and the cabin, though rustic, had a cozy charm. As they unpacked, the landowner, Mr. Whitaker, appeared, an elderly man with piercing blue eyes. He greeted them warmly, but his smile never quite reached his eyes. "Welcome to Lake Shadow," he said. "It's a beautiful spot, but be careful near the water at night. There's an old legend around these parts." Intrigued, Sophia pressed him for details. "What kind of legend?" Mr. Whitaker hesitated, then leaned in closer. "They say the ghost of a young girl haunts this lake. She drowned here many years ago, and her spirit wanders the shore, searching for company. But don't let that spoil your fun. Just stay away from the water after dark." That night, the friends gathered around a campfire, roasting marshmallows and sharing stories. Inevitably, the conversation turned to Mr. Whitaker's warning. Noah, ever the skeptic, laughed it off. "Ghost stories are just that, stories. There's no such thing as ghosts." But Lily, always sensitive to the supernatural, felt a shiver run down her spine. "We should be careful. There's often truth in legends." As the night deepened, an eerie fog rolled in from the lake, and the friends retired to their rooms. Sophia, unable to sleep, found herself drawn to the lake. Standing by the shore, she thought she saw a figure in the mist, a girl with long, wet hair staring back at her. She blinked, and the figure was gone. The next morning, Sophia mentioned her sighting to the others. Noah dismissed it as a trick of the light, but Lily looked concerned. They decided to stick together during their stay, just to be safe. However, as the days passed, strange things began to happen. Matt went out for a morning swim and never returned. His clothes were found neatly folded on the dock, but there was no sign of him. Panic set in as the remaining friends searched the lake and surrounding woods, but Matt had vanished without a trace. Desperation drove Sophia, Noah, and Lily to visit the local library, hoping to find any information about the legend of Lake Shadow. They discovered an old newspaper article about a girl named Eliza, who had drowned in the lake decades ago. Her death was shrouded in mystery, with rumors of foul play and whispers of dark rituals. Returning to the cabin, they confronted Mr. Whitaker. He finally revealed the truth. "Eliza was my daughter. She was taken from me too soon, and I sought ways to bring her back. I found an ancient ritual that could summon her spirit, but it required sacrifices. Over the years, I lured people to this cabin, hoping their souls would give her peace." Horrified, the friends realized they were trapped in a deadly game. They planned to leave immediately, but as night fell, the fog returned, thicker than before. Lily was the next to disappear. She had gone to fetch firewood and never came back. Sophia and Noah, now terrified and desperate, decided to confront the spirit directly. Armed with a flashlight and a sense of dread, they approached the lake. As they reached the shore, the ghostly figure of Eliza emerged from the fog. Her eyes were filled with sorrow and rage. "You cannot leave," she whispered. "He won't let you." Sophia and Noah turned to see Mr. Whitaker standing behind them, chanting in a language they didn't understand. The ground beneath them seemed to pulse with dark energy. Noah lunged at the old man, but was thrown back by an invisible force. Sophia, now alone, pleaded with Eliza. We don't want to hurt you. Please, let us go." Eliza's expression softened. "I don't want this either, but my father, he controls me. He won't stop until he has all your souls." In a moment of clarity, Sophia realized the truth. She looked at her hands, noticing for the first time that they were semi-transparent. "I'm already dead, aren't I?" she asked, her voice trembling. Eliza nodded. "You died the first night by the lake. You've been part of this haunting ever since." Memories flooded back to Sophia. The figure in the mist, the icy grip pulling her into the water. She was no longer alive, and her friends had been disappearing into the same fate. Mr. Whitaker's ritual had trapped their souls, binding them to the lake. With newfound resolve, Sophia turned to Eliza. "We can stop him. Together." Eliza hesitated, then nodded. As Mr. Whitaker continued his chant, Sophia and Eliza joined hands, their combined spectral energy creating a blinding light. The ground shook, and Mr. Whitaker screamed as his own dark magic turned against him. When the light faded, the cabin was gone, replaced by an eerie silence. The lake was still and calm, as if nothing had happened. Sophia looked around, realizing that she and Eliza were the only ones left. "You freed us," Eliza said softly, "but we can never leave this place." Sophia nodded. "We'll make sure no one else suffers like we did." And so the legend of Lake Shadow grew. The cabin was never rebuilt, and the lake became known as a place of haunting beauty and tragic history. Those who ventured too close after dark claimed to see two ghostly figures by the shore, forever bound to protect the living from the darkness that lurked beneath the waters. The Cornfield Curse. The summer sun blazed overhead as the Miller family embarked on their much-anticipated road trip. David and Sarah Miller, along with their teenage children, Mark and Luna, were eager to explore the countryside. They left early in the morning, hoping to reach their destination by afternoon. However, as the day wore on, their GPS lost signal, and they found themselves on an unfamiliar, narrow road flanked by towering cornfields. "Are we lost, Dad?" Luna asked, her voice tinged with worry as the car rattled along the dirt road. "Just a little detour, honey," David replied, trying to mask his own unease. "We'll find our way back soon." But the further they drove, the more the cornfields seemed to close in on them, the road stretching endlessly ahead. The stalks were unnaturally tall, casting long shadows that danced ominously in the late afternoon light. As dusk approached, the car sputtered and came to a halt. David tried the ignition again, but it was no use. "Looks like we're stuck here for the night," he said with forced cheerfulness. "Let's see if we can find help." The family stepped out of the car, the air around them heavy and still. The cornfields rustled, though there was no breeze, and a sense of foreboding settled over them. "Maybe we should stay by the car," Sarah suggested, but David pointed to a faint light in the distance. "There might be a house over there. Let's check it out." Reluctantly, they made their way through the corn, the stalks brushing against them like skeletal fingers. As they walked, they began to hear faint whispers, indistinct and eerie. "Did you hear that?" Mark asked, his eyes wide with fear. "Just the wind," David replied, though he didn't sound convinced. The whispers grew louder, fragments of sentences reaching their ears. "Turn back. Leave this place. Secrets buried." The family finally emerged from the cornfield, stumbling upon an old, dilapidated farmhouse. It stood in a small clearing, its windows dark and empty like hollow eyes. "This place gives me the creeps," Luna muttered, but they had little choice. They approached the house, the door creaking open with an ominous groan. Inside, The air was musty and thick with the scent of decay. Dust motes danced in the faint light from their flashlights. They found a tattered couch and huddled together, the whispers now a constant background hum. "Look at this," Mark said, holding up an old newspaper clipping he had found on a dusty table. The headline read, "Family Mysteriously Disappears in Cornfield." Sarah's face paled as she read the article. This is about us," she whispered. "But how can that be? It's dated decades ago." As they delved deeper into the farmhouse, they found more disturbing clues. Photographs of their family, but aged and worn as if they had been there for years. Journals describing their final moments, filled with their fears and secrets. "We're dead," David said finally, his voice hollow. "We've been dead for decades. This place, it's a trap." The realization hit them hard. They had been reliving their last moments over and over, unaware of their fate. The whispers were from other souls trying to warn them, trying to break the cycle. "We have to get out of here," Luna cried, but the house seemed to close in around them, the walls creaking and groaning. The farmhouse was a liminal space, a place between the living and the dead. The cornfield was its extension, a labyrinth designed to trap wandering souls. As the family tried to leave, the whispers grew louder, more urgent. "Escape, break the cycle, don't look back." But it was too late. The cornfield was alive, its stalks reaching out to ensnare them. They ran, but the field stretched endlessly in every direction. "We're not going to make it," Mark said, his voice breaking. "We have to try," David urged, but the ground beneath them seemed to shift, pulling them back towards the farmhouse. As dawn broke, the Miller family found themselves back at the car. The previous night, a hazy memory. They were confused, disoriented, but the road ahead seemed clear again. "Just a little detour," David said, trying to shake off the sense of déjà vu. "We'll find our way back soon." But deep down, they knew they were trapped, destined to repeat their final moments over and over. The cornfield's curse had claimed them, just as it had claimed so many before. The farmhouse stood silent and empty, waiting for the next lost souls to wander in, the whispers continuing their mournful refrain. "Turn back, leave this place, secrets buried." The sun set again, casting long shadows over the cornfield. The cycle began anew, the family unaware of their fate as they wandered into the trap once more. But there, in the heart of the cornfield, a figure watched. A previous victim, perhaps, or something darker. Its eyes gleamed with a strange light, and it whispered along with the voices in the corn. "Escape, break the cycle, don't look back." As the night deepened, the figure faded into the stalks, leaving the Miller family to their endless torment. The whispers continued, a haunting melody that echoed through the corn, telling the same tragic tale over and over. The cornfield held its secrets close, its curse unbroken, and the Miller family, like so many before them, became part of its haunting story, forever lost in the endless maze of the corn. The farmhouse stood as a grim sentinel, a silent witness to the endless loop of despair, and the whispers, the eerie, sorrowful whispers, continued to beckon the living into the field, adding more souls to the cornfield's dark harvest. And so, the legend of the cornfield curse grew, a tale of lost souls and unending torment, a place where time stood still, and those who entered never returned. The whispers of the corn were a warning and a lament, a reminder that some places are best left undisturbed. In the distance, the corn rustled, and the cycle began anew. The Carnival of Shadows. The small town of Meadowbrook had always been a quiet, unassuming place. Nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, It was the kind of town where everyone knew everyone else, and nothing much ever happened. That all changed one sweltering summer day when a traveling carnival appeared overnight on the outskirts of town. The townsfolk awoke to the sight of colorful tents and flashing lights, a stark contrast to their mundane routines. Excitement buzzed through the community as word spread. The Carnival of Shadows had arrived. The carnival was unlike any other. Its entrance was a grand archway adorned with twinkling lights and intricate carvings that seemed to move if you stared too long. The townspeople, intrigued and eager for entertainment, flocked to the carnival grounds as soon as they opened. The air was thick with the sweet smell of cotton candy and the sound of calliope music. But beneath the surface, something far more sinister lurked. First, it was all fun and games. Children laughed on the merry-go-round, couples screamed in delight on the roller coaster, and everyone marveled at the exotic performers. But then, strange things began to happen. On the second night, Mrs. Thompson, an elderly woman who never missed a chance to visit the carnival, vanished without a trace. Her husband swore she was right beside him one moment and gone the next. The townsfolk were unsettled, but the allure of the carnival was too strong, and they brushed off the disappearance as a simple misunderstanding. The following night, it was young Tommy Hatcher who went missing. His friends claimed he had wandered into the Hall of Mirrors, but he never came out. Panic started to spread, and whispers of curses and ghosts circulated through Meadowbrook. Yet, the carnival remained open, its bright lights and cheerful music a jarring contrast to the growing fear. Amidst the chaos, a group of teenagers decided to take matters into their own hands. There was Charlotte, the curious and brave leader of the group; Jack, her loyal and strong-willed boyfriend; Sarah, the skeptical and intelligent one; and Tom, the jokester who tried to keep everyone's spirits up. They had grown up together, and the disappearances hit close to home when their friend, Lisa, vanished during a visit to the carnival. Determined to find Lisa, the group visited the carnival one evening, blending in with the crowd. They enjoyed the rides and games, but all the while, they kept their eyes peeled for anything unusual. As the night wore on, Charlotte suggested they split up to cover more ground. With trepidation, they agreed, each venturing into different attractions. Jack headed to the Ferris wheel, hoping to get a bird's-eye view of the grounds. Sarah wandered into the fortune-teller's tent, curious about the old woman's cryptic predictions. Tom, ever the daredevil, entered the haunted house, eager to prove his bravery. Charlotte, meanwhile, decided to explore the carnival's backstage area, where she believed the secrets might be hidden. As the night deepened, the group reconvened at a secluded spot near the back of the carnival. Charlotte had discovered something unsettling: hidden passages and strange symbols etched into the walls of the tents. They decided to return after the carnival closed to investigate further. Sneaking into the carnival at midnight, they moved cautiously through the shadows. The cheerful atmosphere was gone, replaced by an eerie silence. They found a hidden door behind one of the tents, leading to an underground chamber. The air grew colder as they descended, and a sense of dread filled them. In the dim light of their flashlights, they discovered rows of cages, each containing a townsperson who had vanished. Their eyes were vacant, their expressions lifeless. Among them was Lisa, her face a mask of terror. The group was horrified, but before they could react, they heard footsteps approaching. Hiding behind a stack of crates, they watched as the carnival workers entered the chamber. But these were no ordinary workers. Their eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and their movements were fluid and otherworldly. The leader, a tall figure with a sinister grin, began to speak in a language none of the teenagers understood. Charlotte, peeking from her hiding spot, accidentally knocked over a crate, alerting the workers to their presence. The group scattered, running through the dark passages in a desperate bid to escape. As they fled, they overheard snippets of the workers' conversation and pieced together the horrifying truth. The carnival workers were ancient beings who fed on fear and despair. They lured unsuspecting townsfolk into their carnival to harvest their souls, sustaining themselves for centuries. The chase through the carnival was a nightmare. The teenagers dodged through tents and attractions, the malevolent workers hot on their heels. The once familiar carnival had transformed into a labyrinth of terror. Sarah tripped and fell, urging the others to keep going as she tried to hold off their pursuers. Jack and Charlotte managed to find an exit, bursting out into the cool night air. They didn't stop running until they reached the safety of Charlotte's house. Panting and shaken, they realized that Tom and Sarah were nowhere to be seen. Desperate to save their friends, they decided to go back, armed with anything they could find as weapons. Returning to the carnival with makeshift weapons, Jack and Charlotte were determined to rescue Tom and Sarah. They crept through the shadows, avoiding the watchful eyes of the carnival workers. Their search led them to the Hall of Mirrors, a place they had avoided before. The hall was a disorienting maze of reflections, each more distorted than the last. At the center of the hall, they found Tom and Sarah. But something was terribly wrong. Their friends' eyes were vacant, their expressions blank. It was as if they had become part of the carnival itself. Charlotte's heart sank as she realized the truth. Tom and Sarah had been transformed into the very beings they were fighting against. Before Jack and Charlotte could react, the carnival workers surrounded them. The leader stepped forward, his grin widening. "You can't escape the Carnival of Shadows," he whispered. "You belong to us now." In a final, desperate attempt to fight back, Jack and Charlotte swung their weapons. But it was too late. The workers closed in, their eyes glowing with a malevolent light. As darkness enveloped them, the last thing they saw was the sinister grin of the carnival leader. When they awoke, they found themselves in the carnival, but something had changed. The vibrant colors and cheerful music were gone, replaced by a dull, oppressive atmosphere. They were no longer visitors but workers, bound to the carnival for eternity. Their friends' lifeless eyes stared back at them, and they realized with horror that the entire town had fallen under the carnival's spell. The Carnival of Shadows moved on, leaving Meadowbrook a ghost town. Its inhabitants were now part of the carnival, forever feeding on the fear and despair of others. And so, the cycle continued, with the carnival setting up in a new town, waiting for fresh souls to harvest.